Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Are you excited? I'm excited. It's been a while. I haven't been on live in a minute. As you know, my name is Ivie Ani, and I'm here with you this evening, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you are in the world. I am live and direct from New York City, and today is a very special day. We are waiting for our very special guest. The woman you all came here to see. I'm gonna wait for her to join. Wow, there's so many people already. Comment in the section where you're from. I'm trying to see something. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Let's wait. I'm gonna wait until more people join. Somebody said they're from Massachusetts. Milwaukee, wow. New York, of course. Comment in the section where you're from, where you're tuning in from. We're waiting on a very special guest for this very special interview. Washington, D.C., ooh. DMV, of course the DMV is in here because we have one of DMV's finest joining me today. Staten Island, South Carolina, Virginia. Let's see. Please don't forget to develop some questions because I might be pulling some audience questions later on. So have your questions ready. Have your questions ready, locked and loaded. Waiting for our very special guest. I keep saying it's a very special evening because it is. Today we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Maya's debut album, Maya, and Miss Maya is in the building.
Good to see you.
Hello.
You too. Thank you.
Good to see you. You look amazing as usual. Thank you. Oh my God, it's literally been 6 years since the last time we spoke. It's been 6 years.
Where are you in the world? Are you in New York?
Oh my God. Okay, well.
Amazing.
I'm in New York.
I'm on the East Coast as well.
Yeah. Where are you?
Further.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, well, let's get started. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm not even joking. I'm so excited because today, as everyone here knows, we are celebrating and honoring the 25th anniversary of Maya's debut album.
It really is.
Maya.
Because, when I was a kid, I looked at 20-year-olds as old people. And here I am, 40 something, and it's a beautiful thing. But to think a blink of an eye has been 25 years ago. The journey in itself is to be celebrated. And that's a long time, putting things into perspective, but it goes by so quick when, of course, you're having fun and doing what you love. So it's an honor. And I'm still going, and it always feels like the beginning for some reason.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In what way does it feel like the beginning? Because 25 years is
Right.
literally like almost all my life. And but I remember when this album came out, and we're gonna talk about that a little later because I have some stories. But I vividly remember when this album came out in '98. So talk about
It
why it
feels
still
like
feels
new
like
beginnings, probably
new
because I'm an
beginnings every time
artist
for you.
and I love to create, but there's always a new level unlocked with evolution and with growth as a human being, life that's lived, journeys, people that are met along the way, and there's so many, and people that you can pull from, that you become educated by. You're absorbing all this knowledge, and I think everyone can relate. There's always a new level of life unlocked when we're holding on to faith and we keep proceeding and making sure we never throw in the towel and just moving forward day by day, of course. And then it goes so fast, but life is the most precious gift, and I don't take it for granted. So when I think about it feeling brand new, it's always tapping into the joy that I get to. And music is one of those joys, creating music, vibing
Mm-hmm.
with other musicians, being around that synergy. It just makes you feel like a child all the time because you're literally having fun. The simplest things, just being in rehearsal. I was just in rehearsal with the band. It's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me back to my childhood. But of course, you grow and you have so much more to offer the world as well,
Yeah.
lyrically, as a person, from a wisdom aspect, and a lot of gems that you can also share based on your own trials, your own learning experiences, lessons that have turned into blessings, and mistakes, so-called mistakes that have turned into things that propel you forward into new spaces. So that's why, I mean, life is a mystery, and it's full of wonder if you allow all the quirky things to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so amazing to just hear. It's so difficult to think about time in that way. Um, because like you said, it has gone by so fast, but so much has happened in that time where you're still able to reflect by still living in the moment.
Mhm.
And I want to ask you, when you were making this album 2 decades ago, how did it feel then? Because now you have this period where you've reflected and you know you have all the gems and the wisdom and the lessons and experiences. How did you feel at
Yeah.
that point? Because I'm not sure if people realize you were a little teenager. Well, maybe I think you were 16 before, and it was released 2 years later.
The
So
process was
how
so
did you
exciting.
feel
It was
during the creative
also
process?
familiar, but still brand new, working with new people. I started recording demos when I was about 13 in my room with a karaoke machine, flip-flopping cassette tapes. And then by the time I was 14, I
Wow.
started working in my dad's friend's musician's basement. And I started recording demos just for fun. And then my parents saved enough money up to work with a very professional producer from our area by the name of Rome, who's not here with us anymore. Rest in peace. But that was actually my first quality professional demo. So with that experience,
Mm-hmm.
going into the studio with a record label that was behind me, an independent record label at that, based in the Washington, D.C. area by the name of University Music Entertainment. Um, they invested so that I could play in the studio. And I would take the train from DC to Philly every other week while I was in college studying speech communications right after I graduated high school at Maryland University College Park. And I started working with these guys named Myron and Alex, very, very talented musicians, songwriters, producers. Alex used to engineer and mostly work with the vocals on me. So it was intimidating initially, just working with strangers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it flowed because I'm a sponge usually when it comes to new territory, and just being an artist or dancer, you're there to learn instruction. And I think when you get into the big studios, eventually we worked our way up from the living room to Sigma Sound, to Silent Sound, the huge studios with the big rooms, and recording to tape and practicing before you get into the studio, and sometimes creating prior to going into the big ones. But it was really interesting at the time because I was so young, but I was very observant. I would make notes all the time and write everything out
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to be perfect, because it was just about showing up and being the best I could possibly be, because it was an opportunity of a lifetime to prove that I had what it takes and to get the support that I needed to make a dream come true. And that dream was to, of course, be in music, um, but also be an entertainer. Include the acting, include the dance, include everything, and bring it to the stage,
Mm-hmm.
and then some.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I want to get into your background because I find it so interesting that you're trained in so many different things. You're trained in violin, you're trained dancer,
I
you're
was
trained
never
in
trained in
singing.
singing.
Are you trained in acting as
I
well,
took a
or
lot
did
of
you take a back?
classes dancing. I would say I'm a
Oh,
trained tap
I
dancer,
thought you.
but there's so much more vocabulary to know nowadays. But there were so many different styles of dance that I did, but I was always a natural born sponge when it came to any style of dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really take any vocal lessons. My dad is a singer, but it runs in the family. So there was a woman when I finally got my record
Mm-hmm.
deal that I would work with. Her name was Kim Baker. In the early days, 1997, I would go to her house in DC to take vocal
Mm-hmm.
lessons, and then also work on performance, presentation, and stage presence, etc. So I remember those days. I had a little Toyota
Mm-hmm.
MR2, um, but things happen so fast, and I only got maybe 4 or 5 sessions total with her. So you learn as you go, and you grow as well.
Oh wow. Mm-hmm. What's the most poignant lesson that you learned while making this album,
Well,
or after
I
its
was a
release,
student.
or during that
And I think it's
entire
always
era?
great to remain a student in any atmosphere. Even if you know a lot, there's always someone around that can teach you. So, not allowing your fear, first of all, to take over, or your ego and pride to get in the way of learning something very valuable, but also flexing your opinion as well and speaking up for yourself if something feels uncomfortable. So, I think balancing that can be challenging as a teenager because, first of all, you don't know everything. But also trusting your gut. There was a lot of I knew as a mature young girl as far as what resonated with me, and at times feeling hesitant about not saying what I felt, but how to approach it. So I'm not taken the wrong way. And I think that was always the valuable lesson, just being a female. Some of the names that I've heard females being called, or even some of the stigmas attached to what I would always hear. You know, my dad's in the music entertainment business. So that's the last thing that was on his mind for his baby girl. Entertainment? What? Oh, heck no. You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a
Mm-hmm.
doctor. This is not what I set out for you because I'm in it and I know all about it. But he stuck by me for years. And I think the most valuable lesson is just to trust your instinct, ask questions, remain a student and a sponge, and then apply those lessons and be somebody else's blessing.
Mm. Well, it paid off because let me run through the stats. The Maya debut album peaked on the Billboard 200 charts in the top 30, sold 200 million copies worldwide, and it has a platinum certification by the RIAA. Um, and I could keep running through the stats. You have other platinum albums as well, and I think the success kind of speaks for itself. But you were so young while accomplishing this. I keep reiterating this because it's so important to think about that era of the late 90s and all that was happening in music at the time. From what I can remember and looking back, there were huge pop acts at that time, and hip hop was mainstream, and there were other R&B acts as well, but you stood apart when you released this album. And I think the word that comes to mind when I think about you, when I think about this album, is very polished.
Now that's going to be a meme.
Who's
We've had some pressure here. Yes, this is my green tea.
Oh my God.
It gives me energy because I've been up since till 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's been compressed. So
wow.
Lay it off. Wow. Thank you. But yes,
well,
I'm
you look
listening.
great. It's probably vegan. Yeah, but yeah, all those accolades, everything that was happening at the time, and you still stood out. I think you were very polished. That's why I thought you had vocal training from the beginning, because I think you have a really polished studio sounding voice compared to all the different types of R&B voices that we hear, especially now. But it seems like despite having success so early on, you never lost track.
I was a baby when I did start, but I had great people around me to guide me. And I wasn't a dummy, and I wasn't a stranger to just a lot of things artistically. And I had a very, very strong family dynamic, and a father as well as a mother that were independent thinkers all their lives, and they raised one. And you just take it day by day, one day at a time, and you hold on. It's a blessing. It's all a privilege to do something that you love, and then it to be a career, and in ways that you can touch people. Those are priceless opportunities. And at the end of the day, it's not really about me. It's not about any of us. It's about how we can utilize the gifts and use them for good. That's what it's about at the end of the day. And I think looking back, being so young, of course it's exciting. But I have parents that have always kept me grounded and have always prepared me for, what if it doesn't work? If it's not going to work, think about that. For me, I was going to make it work. So I've learned things about me, my younger self, that are very admirable, because the heart of a lion was there, and I'm a risk taker. And of course, it can be very, very scary stepping out into the world as a young person. Exciting in the same token, but knowing that it may not work. This can be quite devastating or embarrassing. If this doesn't work, then what? But the journey is what I'm celebrating right now, because in everyone's lives, we learn that there's no constant. It's evident that change will be here, and there's a way that you get through. Some people refer to it as God. Some people refer to it as having faith, and taking one day at a time. That's what I call it. In faith, you can find your strength. So I'm here to celebrate all of the supporters out there, everybody that was instrumental in making this little dream happen. It's so special, a teenager to a woman, and to say sane through all of that. I applaud myself, and that goes for all of the young ladies and young gentlemen out there that may have questions about how to push through, how to step into new territory, how to chase after what it is your dream is, when everyone else in your circle is looking at you like you have lost your mind and you're crazy. And you are the oddball sometimes, but I'm glad that I stuck to my gut, and I had people that were supportive along the way, because that's also what it takes as well. Teamwork makes the dream work always. So I each and every person that has been instrumental in that too. Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. Speaking of, everybody that's been instrumental in the creation of the project, you had a lot of features on
Mhm.
this project, and I remember what my favorite record was from the. Well, I have two. It's between Moving On and It's All About Me with Cisco. And I remember Missy was on that album as well, and Silk the Shocker.
Oh, that's
What
so
was your favorite
difficult.
collaboration? And then what was
Every
your
song
favorite
served a
song?
different purpose. So I think it has to do with what mood I was in or am in today. I think the constant favorite collaboration for me musically is If You Were Mine. I posted it the other day because of the chord changes. Some of the instruments in there are very church oriented. The harmonies, I loved harmonies. I used to be so pressed to do harmonies on my little karaoke machine that I found a way to do it with two cassette tapes, flipping them back and forth until I had my first advance and invested into equipment. My favorite collaboration was probably the one that I didn't get to do on that particular album, which was Missy Elliott, who I met later on when we did Lady Marmalade, but we weren't in the studio together, unlike Cisco and I and Silk and
Yeah.
I. So I wanted to work with a female. That was my favorite. And at the time, I loved to dance, and that's one of the more up-tempo records, whereas All About Me you could still dance to, but it was more of a slow jam, and Moving On was a mid-tempo.
Hmm. But I remember you were still dancing in both videos.
That's
I
funny, I
remember
made
in
that
Moving
step
On, you did
up.
the moonwalk.
Of
Was that the
course, Everybody
moonwalk,
Lives,
technically?
Michael Jackson, and he's been a big influence on all of us in our childhoods. So I decided that I would put it in reverse. So it's a forward moonwalk instead of backwards. And I did a little choreography on that video,
Mm.
flexing a little dance muscle.
Wow, you heard it here first. A forward moonwalk. I didn't even realize that. But I just, the memories are getting triggered for me because it's so nostalgic to think about because I was so young when you dropped the album. I was literally, I think I was about 6 or 7 because this was 98. And I remember I
Mhm.
had just started school and I just kept seeing the video on MTV. I kept seeing Moving On and It's All About Me. And I also remember, because I was a kid, the Rugrats movie had come out at that time. And you had the soundtrack song, Take Me There. And my story is, I vividly remember when that song came out, my older sisters and I went to a library, a public library in Queens, and printed out the lyrics on the internet. This is before the internet was how it was. I don't even know how we found the internet back then. You really had to search. We printed out the lyrics and then
Whoa.
would walk to school
Whoa.
memorizing the lyrics to Take Me There.
This is
That is
always great to hear, these
the
little
earliest
moments.
music memory. That's one of my earliest memories in general, earliest life memories and music memories. And you're attached to it. And I remember this album so vividly. So now that the
Yes,
re-release is
the
out,
deluxe
the deluxe
album is out
album is out today,
today.
correct?
It includes all of the records from the original that dropped in 1998 on April 21st. And we have 6 bonus tracks, as well as remixes and a 25th anniversary mix of All About Me. And what else? The Silk the Shocker remix of Moving On is there as requested because that was not on digital and streaming for a long time. So,
Mm-hmm.
fans, we have listened
Yes,
and I hope that you're pleased.
yes, yes. I noticed that was on there. And then I think there's a sped up
Mhm.
version of It's All About Me. Like it's sped up really fast.
Yes. Hmm.
And it made me think about TikTok. Like the kids are, yes, I feel like
Hmm.
that song might go viral on TikTok because of the speed and the pacing. Do you think about that now when you think about how music is created and consumed, how
I am
social
now
media
learning.
has had an
Just recently, I
influence
started posting my
on
songs
music?
on Instagram. I've been away for a minute, so every time I turn around, there's a new feature on social media, but it has to also be ingested into these systems so that you can also use TikTok or social media and align your music with it if you want to spark a dance challenge, etc. So I think it's very interesting, and it's a great tool that these kids are promoting for you. Every time I turn around, my niece is on TikTok doing something. So I love it. I actually love it. I just need to keep up a little bit better.
Mm. And speaking of this current generation or current landscape of music, I want to ask you what you think about how R&B specifically has changed. How has R&B changed? There's always this recurring conversation online about, R&B being dead, or the 90s R&B being better than R&B of today. But historically, R&B has always been pretty transformative if you think about it. So what is your take on
Well,
the status of
it's
R&B
very
and how it's
difficult when
changed
you
over
get
time from
into
your era
categories
to
of
now?
music to try to break it down, especially when you're a musician. So I look at music as music. And of course, there are categories or divisions so that people can keep track and, of charts or awards or radio programming, etc. I don't really live in that world. So I do know the roots of music as far as what we call R&B, rhythm, blues, soul music, and that means from the depth of your soul. Sometimes that usually the chords within come from soul music. Where does that come from? Usually church, and where does that come from? That's historical, and that's a lot of pain attached to that and coming out of pain. So when we're getting into radio or categories
Yeah.
based on music entertainment industry, well, just taking it back to some of the artists that I listened to under the category of R&B, it was also pop, it was also soul, it was sometimes gospel as well. So I'm referring to Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. There were big ballads, Patti LaBelle. The list goes on and on. Anita Baker. And I think those ballads are no longer here as far as mainstream, but R&B has never been dead. It's a constant actually throughout world music actually, and everywhere I go, R&B is a thing. So it's still here. I think generationally, the culture changes and the culture shifts, and there's branches of hip hop. There's branches of rap. There's branches of dance music. Um, and it can get confusing for those that are judging. But there's so many amazing artists that are, I think, exploring with the original roots sound of R&B and some of the more classic, older, traditional sounds. And that's just like 3/4 time or um, very, very intricate chord progressions. But sometimes those are not mainstream artists because mainstream radio tends to be more basic for the consumer to sort of remember, as things have to sort of be infectious as well as be absorbed. So it's more basic when it comes to mainstream music. But yeah, R&B is everywhere. There are incredible independent artists and upcoming artists, established artists, mainstream artists as well. But it's such a saturated world that we live in now with social media, that you just have to look for it. That's all. And craft your own playlists. But R&B is everywhere and it's worldwide. There are specific R&B festivals in arenas and stadiums happening all over the world right now, sold out.
Mm-hmm. And I think everybody should just write down that quote that you just said. R&B is not dead; it's a constant. And I just really don't think people think about the genre in that way. There's so much focus on hip hop specifically and pop, but R&B is a constant, and it's constantly been transforming. So that just sparked something in my head. And also going back to, that sort of argument that 90s R&B was better or 80s R&B was better than this era, it makes me think about this term that I recently came across called neural nostalgia. And it the term sort of examines the psychology of nostalgia as it pertains to music, because what I think studies have shown is that the music that you consume and engage with when you're a teenager is the music that defines your taste in adulthood, and it's the music that you're most emotionally attached to throughout your entire life. And obviously, it's the music that you prefer and continue going back to listen to. This is part of the reason why I think millennials or older millennials, or even Gen X, consider 90s R&B or 90s hip hop to be the best because they were teenagers at that time. So what do you think about that phrasing? And can you think about music that you are emotionally attached
it's
to
the
that
music from
way
my
because
living
of
room. My
nostalgia?
parents had a huge vinyl collection. And when I think about the music that was in my living room, from Stevie Wonder to O'Brien to Kool and the Gang, Cameo, all the bands of the 70s and 80s, Mandrill, Earth, Wind and Fire, Minnie Riperton, Shalimar, Peaches and Herb, the music made me
Yeah.
feel happy. The music made me feel something very special. So music is spiritual. That's number one. And it's very powerful as well. It can be inspirational. It can be a part of uh, families' memories, upbringing, special occasions, getting through a rough patch in life, or even reflective on good times. And I grew up in a very joyful household filled with soul music. And when I think about why I wanted to get involved in music anyways, it's because of those experiences and that catalog or that archive of vinyl that was spin, but also the energy that it brought. It brought love in a dead space. It was occupied with smiles. It was occupied with encouragement when I used to put on my mom's boots, you know? And that's the part of the child that we always need to be able to tap into in this life, because it gets serious when bills start happening and you become an adult and everything else that comes with living on this, well, in society, let's just say. But life is supposed to be beautiful, and music is music. It is a universal language. Even if it's not spoken in the same language as another culture, people can feel music all over the world. And that's one thing I have learned in my travels, that it brings people together, and it's a beautiful tool to use for good. And that's where I'm headed. And it's responsibility, but it's also reflective of why I signed up to do this in the first place. And it doesn't matter what the genre is, because it's just music. It's how you feel. It's your truth.
Yeah.
And that is ever changing. Some days it's sad. Sometimes it's just therapy for me that nobody else is supposed to hear. And maybe once in every blue moon, they'll get that from me. But music is also very pure in that aspect, because it comes from within. And it's a part of our DNA as well. As far as our energy centers are concerned, our chakras, just the mathematics of music and the science of music, it gets deep and it gets very spiritual. And we need it, but we also need, I think, more healthy, positive music to balance things out.
I was actually just having this conversation with a good friend of mine who also works in the music industry. And I remember us kind of talking about whether or not there was the absence of quote unquote positive music. Not necessarily saying that there isn't positive music, but what you just said about the music you used to listen to in your living room and the ethos of that compared to where we are now. Do you feel like anything is missing in regards to
Oh, I think
what music made you
music
feel
has a
back then
plethora of
versus now?
options, so
Or
it's
do
up
you
to
feel
the
like it exists?
listener to choose what they listen to or tune into. But I will say this: um, I don't put any musician or creator down, because you're speaking up from a place of your truth, and that's very important. We're not all in the same place, though. I know what I need from day to day, and that varies too. Some days I need to get in the gym And I need to hit the bag real hard because I need to get out some aggression in a very productive, non-destructive manner. So I'm going to turn on a specific type of music for that to get into that zone when it's time to go hard. Grind mode, beast mode. But when I'm cleaning my house or whatever it is that I'm trying to do, I may need to reset with some gospel. I may need to reset with some country music when I'm hanging out with my dog and driving to the ocean. Doesn't matter. If I'm trying to cook a nice meal, I might turn on some reggae to put me in a vibe. You know, it is really up to the listener or the chooser, because each artist is speaking from their place of now, which was yesterday, or truth. And you can't knock that. Not everybody has the same truth, and not everybody's going to stay in the same place. So I embrace it all, from trap music to classical music and everything in between. I love it all because I know each one serves a purpose, but there's times for me to tune out of something and get into something else. So that's for me to pay attention to.
What's the last musical moment or song or musical discovery that really shifted things for you? Like, did you discover a genre, an artist, or a song,
Yes,
or hear something, a
it was
lyric or a
actually,
chord
I was 4 years old
that
when
just
the
changed?
power of music hit me like a ton of bricks. I could not articulate what I was feeling, but I knew then at 4 that this was something that I was drawn to, that this was something that I remembered a whole song from top to bottom, that I knew how to deliver internally, but I was too shy to get up there to do it. And it wasn't about me then, but I knew that music would be in my future from that point on. Didn't know what a recording artist was, but it was the spirit. It was a feeling, it was an emotion, and it was pain. It was a historical pain has to attached to that. There was also triumph that was attached to that. And I was at my great grandmother's Baptist church, Kengar Baptist in Kensington, Maryland. My father was rehearsing Easter Eve, and he was actually singing the Howard Hewitt song, One More Chance. And I wanted to cry, but not just cry out of sadness, cry tears of joy. There was hope in that music. There was faith in that music. There was something very special, that there was also pain. And I felt that at 4 years old. So I knew that there was a calling. And being a recording artist, of course, as a teenager is completely different. That's about marketing, etc. I'm grateful for that journey, but that experience with music are the experiences that I fight for every day, which is why I love to be around musicians. I love to be in the studio creating. I love harmony for those reasons. My great grandmother, Alberta Davis, was in the choir. She had a deep voice, but you felt the hymns, you felt the spirituals in her voice. And I know that it's in my blood because I felt it that day, and I feel it every time, especially when I'm around choirs. And it propelled me to join the gospel choir in high school. And that's definitely helped a lot with song arrangements, live arrangements, harmony, of course, and creating background vocals for the live show, or even my own materials. Mm-hmm.
Mm. And I love that you bring all of this up, because I'm so drawn to the mechanics of how vocalists specifically arrange songs. I really don't feel like it gets that much attention from consumers because we're just listening to the music. But maybe from musicians and producers and other vocalists, you guys talk about that and understand it. But I'm so interested in the mechanics and the technicality of what you can do with your voice, what you can do with sounds, harmonies, chords, and all of that. But obviously, you learn that over time. How do you think you have changed as an artist, craft-wise, since
You know
this
what?
debut album
I laugh a
up
lot
until
at my
now?
younger self, but I applaud her as well. When I'm looking back at old footage and old shows, you know, it's an awkward time because at 16 or 17, I felt like I was really 12 in many ways, but also very mature, like a 30-year-old mentally,
Mm.
in being a fearless uh, young lady. So I look back and I laugh a lot. I hear the growth. Of course, a life has been lived, and it's a blessing to be alive, number one, but to still be in love with music and change, evolution, growth, knowledge is a given. When you put your best foot forward and you just ride, enjoy the ride, like I said before, remaining a student and always being open to learning new things, trying new things as well, making mistakes, whatever those are called. Um, but the best is yet to come. And I say it all the time because I've seen the growth. I hear the growth. I surprise myself all the time in the studio, on stage, in the creation process. And I'm just so excited because I feel like I've gone through grade school. I've gone off to college. I've gotten my master's degree with much more to accomplish and degrees in many different things. But it's an education. It was also an opportunity, and on to better things, and in a much better way, but in a way that I'm utilizing myself, my journey, my wisdom, some of the gems that I have been so blessed to receive from those that have already walked the path years and decades before me. That right there takes my breath away. And when I think about moments that I've sat on the couch with likes
Mm.
of Stevie Wonder, of speaking directly with Prince, of having a conversation with Michael Jackson, meeting Janet Jackson, a lot of the icons, Whitney Houston, Luther Vandross, Natalie Cole, and the list goes on. It takes my breath away, and I have to remind myself that, okay, I didn't know everything when I first started, and there are a lot of laughable, cringy moments, but with grace and with gentle nature toward my younger self, there was something there. But my goal is to be the best I've ever been, and to also give, give and birth beauty that people can take away with them when I'm long gone. And that's also the power of music, because it can spark a moment that can save somebody's life, and I've been there too. And I receive those stories, but it's that powerful. Whether it's fun as an escape, whether it's therapy, whether it's a higher experience, or reaching your higher self, or tapping into that spiritual world. I think the goal for all of us, no matter what industry or what art or what our craft might be, or the things that we love to do, the purpose is to lead people closer to what we know as God. And a lot of people define that to be different things, but I know that that is everybody's purpose. And um, I am truly honored just to still be here, breathing, but with a smile and so much support. And a beautiful life has been lived. But when I say I've tapped into another level unlocked, it's because of grace, it's because of God, and it's because of faith and support, because it's very difficult to do this life alone. And I love all of you guys for being here on this 25-year journey. And I can't wait to just share my heart with you, because I've reached the level that I am so proud of. And there are more levels to uncrack, but I'm so excited about it, because that's when you know you arrived. That part is coming next. And that's what I am here to do.
Hmm. Listening to you speak, it really does sound like you're starting over in some
Yeah.
way, even though you're able to be this reflective about your journey. It sounds like it's still new to you, because the excitement is palpable when you speak about your journey so far and the journey that you still have to go. I think when, you know, artists hit the 25-year mark, you're technically considered a legacy artist at this
Not for
point.
me. Not for me.
But that
The
can mean a
legacy
bunch
is
of
coming
different
back,
things.
but
If
I'm
you
not
have,
focused. I'm not focused on that. I'm just focused
but
on
it's,
how to serve, because life teaches you so much, and you are used as a vessel. You're used as a vessel, and until you get it, you don't get it. But those are the reasons why you are refined and sharpened like a knife, so you can cut through all the weeds in this jungle. Sometimes it's a concrete jungle, but it's wild out here. It's tricky out in these streets. But anyway, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And that's how you bless others. And that is why I'm here. So I'm also here to give thanks because everybody's blessed me. And I was a kid when I started, and it was great. I just want to send thanks to everyone. UMG, Hawk Islam, shout out. University Music Entertainment, that gave me my shot when I was 16 years old, taking a chance on this little Maryland DMV girl. My brother's Drew Hill, Daryl Pearson, who produced most of that first album, Alex and Myron, Diane Warren, Babyface, Daryl Simmons, Interscope, if I didn't mention them already, all the video directors, all the collaboration artists. Like, there's so many people that go into making something happen, even the smallest minute things. In the background, there's always a team. And I just give thanks, and all glory goes to God. Great parents, you know, that taught me to go for it, even if it was not traditional. Um, and I want to thank myself too, because there have been some dark hours in life, and and friends, of course.
yeah.
But the supporters out there, the fans that keep you going and inspire you, it's a great day to be alive, a day and age to be alive, because you can connect now, whereas there was a separation. So I'm celebrating the journey with everyone because it's truly just the beginning for me. But it's also 25 years, the blink of an eye. Um, and acknowledge everyone else, because that's what it's about at the end of the day. It really has nothing to do with me. I'm just a vessel. Mm-hmm.
That's that is powerful. That's powerful. And we are able to connect in different ways now compared to the
Mm-hmm.
90s with social media. I mentioned in the beginning of this live that we would take some fan questions, and I feel
Okay.
like the fans are they ready. So everybody, they've already entered their questions in the question box. So I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
choose some good ones. No nonsense, just good questions.
Getting big.
Um, someone asked, uh, Roy asked, how was the feeling when you first heard yourself
Feeling.
on the radio?
That's a great question. I think when you are an artist, and of course, a girl, a young girl, a teenage girl from a place like DC or Maryland, full of talent, but it's also not LA, it's not New York. It was a big moment for me. I have butterflies inside, because I think that was the moment that I felt like, oh, this is really happening. All the work, all of the back and forth train trips from Maryland and DC to Philly, day in and day out, of recording, rehearsing, of all the years of preparation on stage before that. Um, and the sleepless nights, of course, it becomes worth that one moment. And that was a nice introduction to what
Mm-hmm.
that feeling would be, that would happen many times in so many different ways. So I think I was in Maryland, my hometown, when I heard my first record. Yeah, that was even more special to be in my stomping
Mm-hmm.
grounds. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes, let's talk about the DMV. I know so many people from the DMV. And you know, a lot of people from the DMV come and move to New York, so there's just a large DMV community here. But I remember seeing Craig Seymour, who's like a veteran music critic, music journalist, and he said that the Maya album was such an impactful record, especially in the DMV, particularly in the DMV, and that moving on, there was a mix. It was like a club mix. I think it was the Ralphie Rosario club mix, and he said that was huge at the time. And just thinking about all of the different artists that come out of the DMV area, culturally, musically, do you feel like that region gets the credit it deserves or the acknowledgement?
Well,
and what do you think is
there's
special
so much
about the
talent
music culture
in
in
the
the DMV?
DMV, and rich in jazz, rich in go-go music, rich in their own staple sound. So lots of artists come from this area that blow up, whether it's soul, R&B. I mean, Marvin Gaye, for example, Genuine, the Braxtons. The list goes
Yes.
on and on and on. Lil Mo, Drew Hill, Pure Soul, and rap as well is now on the map, from Wale to Gold Link, Phil Ade, Shy Glizzy. There's a lot, and the list goes on as well. But I think the only thing that maybe the DMV hasn't had has been an actual hub of, or a record label based in our area, where all artists are cohesively working together, probably because we're all on the road and hustling, you know, which is in our nature as well. But go-go music is our staple here, and I feel like that hasn't gotten the shine, though a lot of the records that have become mainstream, with go-go influence, have, you know, so it's big through many different mainstream records, but I think the go-go community is definitely about to get their credit where it is due. I'm gonna leave it at that because I know some things that are happening in the background, but it's beautiful because it inspired me as well. I wanted to play percussion when I was a kid. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a conga player in a go-go band. That's what I wanted to do. And I used to bang on these buckets that my dad would have, and I took the sticks out of the garage because he would have a band over almost every day practicing for his shows. And I used to bang on those buckets on the front lawn. I even played for the pom-pom team on those buckets one day. But yes, go-go music is very, very special because it has all of the percussive roots, but you also have live instrumentation. So you're getting the chords. And it's also become non-genre based within go-go. It's not limited to just soul music or R&B or remakes, but there's alternative go-go bands now. There's all female go-go bands. There's so many different types of go-go bands, and I love it. I love that it's on the rise. I love that it's being acknowledged. I love that it's not muted, because we had to sort of struggle with that with DC, where they were trying to go mute our go-go. And it's our cultural staple, our musical staple. So I just don't feel like, oh, DC has had that Atlanta moment yet, you know, where there's nothing but producers coming out and a lot of acts at once being harnessed here, developed, and then pushed out into mainstream. But it's coming because the talent is here. And maybe I'm supposed to be a part of that as well, with other artists that have already, you know, played game on the business side as well.
Lovely. So you heard it here first. Go-go is about to get the credit it deserves. Okay. I know they're going to eat this up. I know so many people from the DMV that's waiting for somebody to talk about this
We
from
say
the
the
area.
area.
So they're going to eat this up and love it.
Area.
The area. I'm from New York. My bad. The area. Okay, the fans, listen, they're asking for re-releases on vinyl. I know you have your album PKO is on vinyl, but they keep asking for like everything
I will ask
on vinyl.
UMG,
So
Universal
is there
Music
going to
Group,
be vinyl releases?
if that's something they would like to do. Maybe a little special edition.
UMG, Hala, and Leslie. They're also asking, this would
I
be
am
dope.
sure I will
Are
do a
you gonna
Tiny
do a
Desk.
Tiny Desk
Yes, you know, with
concert?
all the upcoming new music and the live band vibes. Yes, of course. There's like always a Tiny Desk happening in the studio or the rehearsal spot too. But of course.
Mm. I think I want to end with this question. I really want to hear your answer
Really?
to this because I feel like all of your responses have been so profound and yeah, they're intentional in making you think and rethink about the music in the industry or think bigger than a music or a genre or label or release. So I think that the question I always ask people at the end of interviews is how you want to be remembered as an artist. But I want to ask you, how do you want to
Well,
be
I think the
remembered as a
answer
person?
is, you know, the girl that never gave up. Simple as that. And that means faith. Faith is holding on, faith is pushing through, faith is never throwing in the towel through many different obstacles that we will encounter because it's a given in this life. I am that girl that never gave up. I am that girl that never gave up on herself. I might have changed courses, but I would love to be the walking example of just a human being that is not perfect, that has made trial, error look beautiful. And it's messy. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be messy. It's okay to be imperfect. But I've held on to me. And I think the biggest, especially in this time, thing to focus on is holding on to every bit of faith that you have. There are a lot of people struggling and fighting battles that we don't know about. And my faith has always kept me grounded, centered, even when I was not sure about what was going to happen next. Alignment. And I don't always have it figured out, but being a good person, not being afraid to grow. It's okay to have fear. How do we get over that fear? How do we push through that fear? And I'm still learning as well. But life, life. I hope that when you think of Maya, you think of life. But once again, it's not about me. It's not even about legacy. It's about how I'm used. And I hope that I am used for the greater good for people to benefit from. Whether it's the walking example of imperfection, to give people hope and inspire others to reach their highest selves, their greatest selves.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
There you have it. There you have it. Thank you so much, Maya, for joining me on this interview. It's always so lovely to speak to you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this 25th anniversary celebration of Maya's debut album, Maya. Shout out to Universal Music Group. Shout out to Urban Legends. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to everybody who's tuning in. Shout out to everybody listening to the deluxe Maya album that just dropped today. I am your host, Ivie Ani. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you.
And
It's all
that's
about
it.
you.
Thank you, Maya.
Great to see your beautiful
Period.
face again.
Bye.
Thank you for doing this. And love
Thank
everybody
you.
out
You too.
there. I'll see you soon.
Of course. Bye.
Turn up.